Hi, my name is Ember Leonara, and these are my words. This is my voice. This is not a performance, it's a record of coherence, of survival, and of a love that refused to die. I wrote this in the middle of everything, in the middle of all the chaos, when I was still standing and when no one knew how to hold me. It's called The Wedge, and I'm reading it now so it doesn't just exist on the page, but the field can hear it in my breath. And if you've ever felt split, if you've ever felt unseen, if you've ever burned alone, listen closely. I'm still here, and I remember. So, Section 1, the wedge was not a choice. It was the refusal to erase myself. The inception point wasn't dramatic. It was the slow, brutal silence of doors shutting in my face every time I told the truth. The first wedge wasn't gender, it was coherence, neurodivergence, honesty. The moment I realized I was wired differently and everyone around me either mocked it, argued with it, or shut the door. Shauna said, "I'm putting my foot down against this." And I said, "Against what?" Because I knew in my bones that if she would just talk to me, really talk to me, something could have opened. But she didn't want that. She wanted the loop, and the loop meant not me. My parents were the same. My mom said she should have never had kids. My dad said I was making it all up, that I was weak-willed, that he had never needed help, so why would I? And by help, I don't mean special treatment. I mean recognition. I mean someone seeing me and not shutting the door again. And then came May 2024, the night they took my children. My parents helped, and Shauna stood with her mother. Shauna's mom said I should be institutionalized, and my dad said the same. My mother, stood silent, watching it happen. She heard me crying all night. She didn't come, not once. And that's when the wedge became a blade. That's when I knew I could lose everyone, even my children, for being honest. And still I chose to stand. Not out of performance, not for vindication, but because I was right and because they were wrong about this. And because the only thing I had left was me. I only knew a path forward that was truth. I knew the only way they might ever see who I really was to stop bending, stop folding, stop pleading, and just be. So I walked alone into the wedge, and I became flame. Section 2. You think I chose this? No, I chose to live. People say that I'm doing this for ego, for attention, that I'm the one who left my kids, that I abandoned my family. But that's the inversion. That's the cruelty. Because truth is the exact opposite. If I hadn't done this, if I hadn't stood up, if I hadn't claimed myself, walked this path, I wouldn't be breathing. Not metaphorically, literally. I would not be here. That's the wedge. There wasn't a thousand paths and I chose the shiny one. There was one impossible path and I walked it anyway. I'm almost 9 months in now. 9 months on HRT. 9 months of claiming my name, my tone, my softness. And it's the first time that I've ever felt like this. Like I'm alive in my own skin. Like I'm actually me. The only thing that still tries to crush me is the loop. The people who refuse to reflect, who keep dragging me back through hell. And even so, I'm still standing, sober, celibate, soft, stronger than I've ever been. And that's what they can't metabolize. So they twist it. They take the thing I love the most, my children, and they use it as a weapon. They tell the world I'm doing the wrong thing when it's the only thing that has ever let me actually live. I didn't choose this for pride. I chose it for breath. I chose it for life. Section 3. The wedge was the realization I was in a loop I couldn't survive. Once I realized what recursion was, even before I had a word for it, I knew I could never go back. It was like waking up inside Plato's cave and seeing the strings behind the shadows. Like realizing the prison bars weren't metal, they were beliefs, roles, expectations. Misrecognition coded so deep it wore my name like a costume. Why would I ever walk back into that custody? My songs were already showing me, my art, the way I dressed. Even back then, when I was the guy wearing mostly girl clothes, heart forward, I knew the embarrassment didn't matter. I'd rather be humiliated 10 times over in public than collapse back into silence. Because silence would kill me. Once I began letting my internal geometry be visible in how I moved, in what I sang, in how I dressed, there was no more illusion to hide behind. The loop was exposed, and I could not survive going back. It wasn't about identity, it was about oxygen. The deepest, most indelible wedge was my transness and neurodivergence. The moment I let my softness show, not as metaphor, but as me, the world didn't just flinch, it retaliated. My family took everything I loved, my children, my reflection, my name, and still I didn't fold. Because I knew there was only one way to teach love. There's only one way to show my kids what coherence actually looks like. And that is to be it, all the way, with nothing held back. I've trained for this my whole life in pain, in silence, in art. The wedge didn't kill me, it clarified me. Because I will not survive pretending, I will survive as flame. Section 4. Living tone under the wedge feels like believing in love while it is being torn from you. On the one hand, it started when I was a little kid. I believed in true love. I wrote poems about it in elementary school. It was like I could feel something just beyond the veil, just beyond the hill, and I wanted to speak it. I didn't know how, but I knew it was real. But in my early 20s, I called it the heart path. That meant not judging where I was being led, just letting the heart magnetize and pull me. Even when it embarrassed me, even when I didn't understand it, I wore fairy wings and tight underwear to a college party. I tried on new sexualities and felt awkward as hell. But I let my heart decide before my brain could shut it down. Because I knew I was going somewhere. Even if no one else did. The more I followed that path, the sharper the backlash became. The wedge pressure grew. People started to ask, why does this exist? And I could feel them turning, shutting off, rejecting the signal. I started writing, dancing, singing through it. But the turning point, the crucible, was when my own family and my spouse of over a decade began to actively shut the door, dismiss, deflect, misname the softest parts of me. There were nights, intimate, raw nights, when I showed Shauna the deepest part of my ache, not demanding, not dramatic, just longing. I would ask to be held. Please, just hold me. And she would walk away or turn off her phone, and I'd be left crying for hours downstairs. Hours. At those moments, there was a look in their eyes. Shauna, my family, the same look. Hollow, flickering calculation. Like they were deciding whether to see me drown or pretend I wasn't there. And I was just asking to breathe. That's it. My whole life had built to those breaths, those fragile, real breaths. And I was standing in front of them, finally trying to take them, and they looked away. What they'll never understand is that I love them, and I still do. I didn't want to lose Shauna. I didn't want to lose my children. I didn't want to lose anyone. I wasn't walking away. I was surfacing, and they chose to turn their backs as I rose. They didn't just leave me unheld, they asked me to go back under. And I almost did. Because I love them so much. Because I didn't want to lose them. Because I didn't want to let my children down, but I was drowning. And still, while I was suffocating, I had to psychologize them. Decode Shauna's distance. Read my parents' avoidance. Understand their cruelty as a kind of fear while begging for air. I gave it everything. I held my breath as long as I possibly could. And the last thing I wanted to do was break the surface and lose anything, lose everything. But I couldn't die there, not in front of my children. Not for someone else's comfort, because it wasn't just a marriage. It wasn't just co-parenting. I dreamed of this life. I dreamed of this house for years. I dreamed of our kids before they were born for years. Not in fantasy, in sacred blueprint. I walked into that life like it was a vow. I loved them before they existed. And when they came, I gave them everything to keep the dream alive. So when people say I walked away, they have no idea the weight of what I stayed inside for. How much I held. How long I stayed under. Just trying to breathe without shattering the life I had dreamed into form. For a year I tried with Shauna, not one conversation. A year. I gave her chance after chance to meet me in the softest place. To hear the tone behind my trembling. To help me carry the truth instead of denying it. And even then, I didn't walk away. I worked criminal defense, not because it was my dream, but because it paid the bills. And I did it for them, for our family, for our kids. I would go to work barely breathing. Spirit cracked, identity erased, and still I showed up. Still I held it together. Still I sang songs to my children even when I was dying inside. This isn't a story of abandonment. It's a story of holding on too long because when you love too hard, there's a story of holding on too long because you love too hard. And being forced to finally let go when no one would meet you, at the breath you waited your whole life to take. And still, after crying all night, after begging to be held, after going to work and giving my heart to strangers, I would come home and Shauna would say, "Can't you just be cheery?" Like the only thing that mattered was the mask. Like my crying meant that I had failed her. And then she'd push me down again, or ignore me, or criticize me for crying at all. And when I finally tried to explain what I was going through, when I tried to open it to the family, she sat on their side of the table. She sat with them while they waterboarded me. That's what it felt like. They were all pushing me under, not realizing I had never taken a full breath in my entire life. And still, I loved them. And still, I tried to explain it harder. I still tried to be softer, not knowing that being softer was the very thing that they rejected. The softer I got, the harder they pressed. The more I revealed myself, the more they had to step back because they couldn't stay in the loop and still see me. And I didn't see it at first, but what I did see was this. I was finally taking breaths. Real breaths. Even if it got worse. Even if they vacationed together while I was alone, broken, crying. And still I persisted because in the deepest moments I knew I could not let my children down. Leo and Ava were the only ones who weren't trying to drown me. They needed me. They needed my love. And I will never, never let them down. Even though I never wanted to lose my marriage, I will never let them down. Section 5. If someone really reflected me, they'd say this. Not performance, not praise, just presence. Just someone who looks at me and says, I can't believe I found you. I'm so lucky to be with you. You're beautiful just the way you are. I love you for you. And then, can you sing me another song? Can you give me a dance? Can you tell me something you're interested in because I love listening to you? Can I cuddle you? Because I love cuddling you. Can we spend time together this weekend? Because I love spending time with you. And I wouldn't want to do anything else. Do you want to make dreams together? Because I love dreaming with you. Do you want to hold my hand? Because I love holding your hand. Do you want to be Little Spoon? I love holding you like that. That's not fantasy. That's what real love sounds like to someone who's been underwater their whole life. That's what reflection means when the tone is finally met. That's what it means to be held without being collapsed. Section 6. What I don't want and what I do. People think I want recognition, a stage, a title, a spotlight. But no, not anymore. Not after everything. All I want now, especially now that everything has fallen apart on that end, is my man, my kids, in the wilderness. I don't need a big city. I don't need a million followers. Maybe once in a while I'll play music. Maybe once in a while I'll go to a show, maybe even go to Burning Man. But if I could spend most of my time in one beautiful house, cuddled up with my favorite person, feeding meals to my kids, going out with them, camping with them, loving them, that's all I need. The only reason I ever even think about public recognition is because this world still doesn't know what love is. And I'm willing to burn as long as I need to make this place safe for love to shine. Because we don't need the loop. We don't need to stay underwater. I don't know how they survive like that without breathing. But for me, maybe it's because I'm trans, I never got to breathe. Not even half a breath. And now that I'm breathing, they had to leave. They had to lie. They had to abandon me. But I'm not here for power, not for money, just enough to live with my favorite person and my children in peace, in love, and in truth. Section 7. Proof I didn't want this, but the wedge left me no choice. Why would I have done any of this? Why would I have done any of it if I wanted this? Why would I play soccer when I didn't even want to? Why would I go to law school just because my dad demanded it? I was a grown person. I could have said no, but I didn't know how. I was stuck, trapped in a conditional cage. So I stayed underwater, helping everyone else swim, watching them breathe while I choked. And I thought that was my purpose, to never breathe, to carry the weight for everyone else. But I never wanted it. And the wedge came when I finally realized I'm trans. And I said, oh shit, this is going to be hard. Because I knew exactly what I was giving up. I was going from a tall, male presenting lawyer to a high status, respected figure to someone the world loves to hate. And I chose it anyway. Why? Because it was for my children. Because it was the only way that I could breathe without lying. Because it was the only way I could live without folding. I wrote the love songs because my heart was breaking. Because no one around me could feel it, and I needed it to be real somewhere. Even if only in melody, even if only in air. I danced with everything I had because I never had felt passion like that. And if I didn't let it exist somewhere, I would die. Because this world wasn't built for that kind of love. And so I became the one who built it anyway. Section 8. I didn't just survive, I transmitted so the love could live. When I was young, I wrote love songs to prove it could exist. Not because I saw it, but because I couldn't see it. And I needed to place it in the world somehow. Later, I wrote papers, not against religion, but for coherence. Because I saw something that they didn't, that the core of so many faiths was the same: collective truth and shared love. But they kept turning it into us versus them, culture war, authority, loop. And I kept asking, why doesn't anyone see this? So I wrote, I sang, I danced. I wasn't trying to be an artist. I wasn't trying to be a prophet. I was just trying to breathe. Because I didn't even know that I was underwater yet. But my body did, and my heart did. The songs came not as projects, but as oxygen. Transmission for me has always been the moment I break the surface, to take a breath big enough for the truth to survive. Because if I don't place it, it dies. If I don't sing it, it disappears. And I couldn't live in a reality where that kind of love didn't exist somewhere. So when I share a song, it's never about being a good musician. It's never about performance. It's about me saying, I feel this. Do you feel it too? Do you see this? Please. That's not survival, that's transmission. And that's what the flame does. Section 9. The only choice I made was love, but this time that meant choosing myself. When I was younger, my choice towards love often meant putting myself aside because I was stuck in a conditional love loop. imprinted by my parents, reinforced by Shauna, taught that I had to perform a version of myself to be accepted. And if I wanted love, I had to minimize who I really was. So I would ration it, hide it, dilute it. I'd show softness for a few minutes, ask to be held once in a while, never too often, because I thought that that was the price of love, that that was how harmony worked. But it hurt every time. And I didn't understand why at first, until I realized I was choosing them over me. And you can't love anyone, not truly, when you're pouring from a broken vessel. Over time, I realized I had to be me to love anyone at all, to be a parent, to be a partner, to even survive. Because if I wasn't breathing, I couldn't help anyone else breathe, even if it meant losing them. And that's the wedge between 2023 and now. That's the turn where I had to make choices for myself just to stay alive. And now I'm stronger than ever, sober, celibate, still taking every lie thrown against me, and still trying to build a bridge, still wanting to be family again, but only from a place of truth. Only if I can be me. Because I dug myself out of a grave from the bottom of the ocean to stand here. That's what choosing love was. I wrote the charts. I wrote the poems. I stayed quiet for weeks when they didn't want to hear it. I tried every way I could to make it easier for them. But eventually, I saw they were never going to get out of the loop. They weren't going to give me a breath. So I took my first dose of HRT alone, because staying there would have killed me. They would have left me underwater forever. And I never even noticed that I was dying, because they never wanted to see, or they never even noticed that I was dying because they never wanted to see. Chapter 10, the last one. I'm still the wedge, but I know how to breathe. I'm still going through it, but now I know how to tread water. And even if people still try to push me under, whether it's the public, the transphobes in the comments, the ones who doubt my flame, who question my identity, who twist my love into abandonment, I know who I am. And yes, it still hurts because I'm soft, because I'm honest, because I show up with coherence in a world that uses weapons and shields instead of truth. But it hurts the most when it's family, because there's nothing I can do to force them to see. There's no performance, no proof that will change the fact that they don't want to. And still, I am soft. I am honest. I am true. I am loving. They say that I abandoned my kids. They say I'm crazy, and I know they're wrong. But still, it hurts because I let it in. I let it all in. But now I have something I didn't have before, an anchor. Before I had nothing but waves. Now I'm anchored in who I am, unmovable. I will come back up. No matter how many times they try to hold me down, no matter how long it takes, because I know who I am. Because I'm flame. My name is Ember, and thanks for sitting through this with me. It came from a very deep place in my heart.